Clay Thomas,
Here.
Christina Hill,
Here.
Lee Lawrence,
Present.
Brad Stanley. Here. On his way. Kim Toulouse.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. If we'll all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Large, would you please address the ethics law announcement?
Board members are reminded that if with respect to any matter or any person coming before the board today, you have received a gift or loan, you have a pecuniary interest, you have a commitment in a private capacity, such as a family, employment, business, or similar relationship, or you provide a representation or counseling before an agency to a person or entity for compensation within the last year on a matter being considered, you must disclose that gift, loan, interest, commitment, or prior representation at the time the matter is being considered. And you furthermore abstain, and you must furthermore abstain from deliberation or voting on the matter. If it is clear that the gift, loan, interest, commitment, or prior representation would materially affect the independence of your judgment of a reasonable person. Board members are also reminded that under the Board of Adjustment rules, if you had any contact outside this meeting with any persons interested in a matter coming before the board today, you should disclose the nature of that contact at this meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Large. The appeal procedure, Mr. Pelham, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Most decisions rendered by the Board of Adjustment are appealable to the Board of County Commissioners. If you disagree with the decision of the Board of Adjustment and you want to appeal its action, you may do so in writing within 10 calendar days from the date that the decision being appealed is signed by the Secretary of the Board of Adjustment and mailed to the original applicant in the proceeding being appealed, in accordance with Washoe County Code. Please call planning staff immediately at 328-6100 for information on the appeal procedure and application fee.
Thank you, Mr. Pelham. Next is general public comment and discussion thereof. Any person is invited to speak on any item on or off the agenda during this period. Action may not be taken on any matter raised during the public comment period until the matter is specifically listed on the agenda as an action item. Madam Secretary, do we have anyone wishing to speak at this time?
We have no public comment.
Thank you. Next item is possible action to approve the agenda. Before we start, is there any discussion amongst the board members on this item? Thank you. I'll accept a motion.
So moved.
Thank you. A second.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Lawrence. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Next item is possible action to approve the February 7th, 2019 draft minutes. Is there any discussion from the board members on this issue? Thank you. I will accept a motion. Mr. Stanley? Thank you.
Second.
Second. Mr. Toulouse, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Number 8 is the public hearing. The Board of Adjustment may take action to approve with or without conditions, modify and approve with or without conditions, or deny a request. The Board of Adjustment may also take action to continue an item to a further agenda. We'll go ahead and move on to administrative permit WADMIN 19-0001, bustle detached accessory structure. Is there any disclosure from the board members? Thank you. Mr. Pelham.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, Roger Pelham with Washoe County Planning and Building. Administrative permit case number WADMIN 19-0001 is a request by Matt and Angie Bussell for a detached accessory structure that is larger than the main dwelling on the same parcel of land. The detached accessory structure, which is a pole barn essentially, a metal kit building, is 2,000 square feet in size. The main dwelling is a little over 1,500 square feet. The parcel of land is located on the very far north end of Red Rock Road near the California border. and is shown here, sort of known as the Rancho Haven area, generally speaking. This is the site plan. North is up on this, and you can see the main dwelling there towards the center of the parcel, and then the proposed barn to the south. These are elevations of the proposed structure, the side and end view. This is the overhead photo of the subject site, and again, it would be located there just to the south of the main dwelling unit. Here is looking east onto the subject parcel, about 10 acres in size, from Red Rock Road. This proposed structure is within the allowed building height for the low-density rural zone. It is architecturally compatible with the surrounding area and development patterns. It's proposed to be the same color as the dwelling. There's no significant topography which would make this either stand out or hide it particularly. It's more or less flat where this is being located, and I apologize for that. Okay. This was heard by the Citizen Advisory Board, and they did recommend approval, no particular concerns. Public notice was provided in accordance with Washoe County Development Code. This map shows those parcels that received public notice of this hearing. The administrative permit findings are found on pages 7 and 8 of the staff report, and I am happy to recommend approval with very little reservation. With that, I have a possible motion there, and I am available for any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Pelham. Are there any questions? Mr. Pelham, I have one real quick. I believe there will be no water fixtures to this
Correct.
thing, and also no electricity, is that right?
I believe there was electricity.
Is there electricity? Okay.
I seem to recall that there was. Give me a moment. I believe the applicant's here, so.
In one
We'll be
moment,
just
we'll
half a
call you
second.
up in just a second,
Yeah.
so. Okay, thank you. Any questions? Thank you, Mr. Pelham.
Thank you.
Would the applicant like to come to the podium and speak? Please state your name for us and your address.
Good afternoon. My name's Matt Bussell, for the record, and I'm the property owner and will be the builder. So, I'm sorry, I didn't want to interrupt.
I guess the question is there will be electricity to this facility?
The current plan is not to have electricity in the building. Maybe later on down the road, there might be electricity, but currently it's going to be developed without electricity.
So it'll be a standalone pole barn, no water, no electricity?
Correct, sir. Yes, it's not meant for, living quarters or any of that sort of, it's basically for storage for ag use.
Excellent, thank you. Any questions? Mr. Lawrence?
Mr. Bussell, I just have a quick question.
Yes, sir.
The poles that go into the ground, are they wood or metal?
They're wood. So if I can elaborate, they're 6x6 and 6x8 timber posts. They're pressure treated and engineered lumber. And then part of the application includes the specifications for the foundation, what they require for the footings and all the engineering designs.
Okay, will you be required to cut those poles? And
I haven't quite got a concise answer on that yet. So I don't know if I'm going to be going specifically at grade level on the whole, or if I'm going to be erecting the pole and then cutting it once it's up. I'm hoping the pole will be at its 14-foot height, and then I'm going to be doing the adjusting in the hole.
okay, if I could just add one thing, I saw a pole barn go up by my house. I'm out in Spanish Springs, and I noticed they cut the pole, the 6x6, and I know a lot about pole treatments and stuff, and just take my word on that, and termites and wood rotting fungi. If you cut them, make sure the cut end does not go into the ground, that the treated original end from the factory is placed in or adjacent to the ground. Okay, that's my only thing.
Okay, yeah, I appreciate that. It makes perfect sense. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Madam Secretary, is there anyone from the public that wishes to speak on this item?
We have no public comment.
Thank you. We'll close public comment and bring it back to the board. Discussion? Thank you. I will accept the motion.
I'm prepared to make a motion, Mr. Chair.
Please, go ahead.
I move that after giving reasoned consideration to the information contained in the staff report and information received during the public hearing, Board of Adjustment approve administrative permit case number WADMIN 19-0001 for Matt and Angie Bussell, having made all 5 findings in accordance with Washoe County Development Code Section 110.808.25, those being consistency, improvements, site suitability, issuance not detrimental, and there is no effect on a military installation.
Thank you. Is there a second? Mr. Stanley, second.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, question for clarification, would that include the conditions of approval as included with the staff report?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We have a second by Mr. Stanley. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. The next item on the agenda is variance case number WPVAR 19-0001, Greenview HOA Garages. Ms. Olander.
Good afternoon, Chairman and board members. Before you have a variance for a garages at Greenview HOA. It's a 4-unit condominium that was built in 1979. Currently, the zoning is LDU. The zoning at the location is low-density suburban LDU, which requires a front setback and rear setback of 15 feet. And on this property, it's 5 feet on the sides. The variance is requesting a reduction for the front setback from 15 feet to 1.5 foot, and then the side on the northwest side only from 5 feet to 1 foot. The request is to construct two-car garages in the HOA common area. One is a 1-car garage and the other one is a 2-car garage. The 2-car garage is the one where the setback needs to be, on the side setback needs to be reduced to 1 foot. This application did come before you in August of 2017. At that time, the applicant was asking for 2 double-car garages, and at that time, they were asking for the front setback again for the 15 feet to 1 foot, but on both side yards, they were asking for a reduction from 5 feet to 1 foot. The Board of Adjustment denied that application at the time, not being able to make findings 2 and 3, which concerns the detriment, that it would be detrimental, and it was also be a special privilege. As I stated earlier, this is a revision. This is a revision. This application is revision to that application. Now they're only asking for one 1-car garage and 1 2-car garage. Here's a picture. This was taken in 2017 without snow to get an idea of how it is. And then we have pictures with plenty of snow. This is where the 2-car garage would be located. It's on sort of the western side of the property. And you can see that on the picture on the left has the walkway down to the units. And this is also the property that backs up to the Nevada State Lands property, the half-acre property. And then this is the property that's adjacent to, this is where the other garage would go. This is a 1-car garage, and it basically would go where the snow is plowed there. And this is where it's adjacent to the other condominium unit. Here's an overhead showing the garages shaded in the gray color. And then here is another aerial. I just added this to get the snow was so plentiful up there. I thought maybe you'd want another visual of it that without snow. So where the boat is where the 1-car garage would go, and where the red car is where the 2-car garage would go. This is a schematic of the 1-car garage and of the 2-car garage. The parcel is sloped and sort of in a wedge shape. The narrowest part of the parcel is along the cul-de-sac. There's an open space easement and a sewer easement at the rear of the property. And as I said, currently the property has no garages, and parking for the condominiums currently is on just a paved parking pad. All the neighboring properties in the cul-de-sac do have garages. Here's a picture of where the open space easement is, it's sort of in that light green, and in the light blue is the sewer easement. So there is no, and there's really no access to the rear of the property, but they're also, it's somewhat constrained also by those easements. And here's just 2-foot contours showing that there's quite a bit of slope. I think it's like 34, 38 feet that from the street down to the lower part of the property. Current code does require garages, so that if this property was being developed currently, they would have to provide 2 parking places per dwelling unit, and at least one has to be an enclosed garage. This applicant would bring this property up to more closely to the current code requirements, and it would also help with the winter parking issues up there. I believe in my staff report, I provided information on the winter parking requirements, and it is a challenge up there for the snow removal when cars are parked in the street. This was sent out to numerous agencies that are listed here. 6 out of I got comments or conditions back from 6 of them, which is included in your Exhibit C of your staff report. This was not presented to the Incline Village or Crystal Bay Cab. It was scheduled to go on February 4th. However, the meeting was canceled because of snow. All the cab members were sent worksheets, what they are normally sent out, and I did receive 2 of those worksheets back, which are also in your staff report under Exhibit F. I did receive numerous emails, which were also in your staff report. Then I believe Donna passed out some more correspondence that I received. Here is the area that was noticed. And staff is able to make the findings under special circumstances concerning the size, the narrowness of the lot and the topography. As I showed in the map earlier, the lot is narrow, it's sloped, and there are existing easements on the rear of the property, which precludes any kind of access from that location. The detriment has to do with if it will cause any detriment to the code. In a sense, it does not, in the sense it brings it closer into code, and it would help with the winter parking requirements. Also, in the sense of special privileges, the neighboring properties have garages. Also, this board has issued variances to other properties in the incline area for the construction of garages. And again, I would just say again, for authorization, the code currently requires parking. And I provide a possible motion.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Mr. Luce?
Ms. Olander, in the staff report, you mentioned that the property was built in 1979. Further on in the staff report, it says currently all parking is on the public street with a parking area adjacent to Unit 1.
I apologize for that.
Okay,
That is an error on my part, yeah. They have those 2 parking pads, and one of the parking pad is, if I go back to that picture, you can sort of see that it's partially on the street and partially on the, that's not the best one. Partially on the street and partially on the HOA's common area, but the one pad is totally on the HOA's common area, so I apologize for that error.
Okay, so the code in 1979 did require some provision for parking?
You know, I did not research that, so I can't speak to that. I know that we did not require garages at that time, and so I know that portion, and I believe it was in the mid-90s. I could ask Senior Planner Roger Pelham. He might have a better recollection of when we put in the code the requirement of the garages.
Thank you, Ms. Olander. Mr. Pelham, perhaps you could answer my question.
Actually, I cannot speak to the pre-93 code, but I can tell you that since 1993, 1 enclosed parking space and 1 additional parking space has been required for each dwelling unit.
Okay, so not having an answer to my question, let me rephrase it. In the planning and development world, is it a standard practice to require adequate parking for residential properties?
That would be correct.
And in your experience, has it always been a standard practice to require parking, adequate parking for residential development?
I would say so. I would say the pads that they have there are only going to park 3 vehicles. Maybe the applicant can speak to that pad where the boat is. I'm not sure at that time in '79 if we required parking in that respect. It's not, currently that is a standard. You would go to any jurisdiction and we would require enclosed parking and parking on the property, so many per unit or so many per bedroom. But in '79, I'm not sure at this location if that would have been required. As you've seen as a board, a lot of people have come before, not a lot, but numerous people have come before this board asking for parking on their property, and we've had to grant, they've been asking for variances because possibly they only have a pad or the parking is steep or things like that. So I'm not going to be able to speak to '79 and what the parking requirements were there. I would have to do some research.
Okay,
Unfortunately, I apologize for that.
that's all right. Thank you.
Ms. Olander, for my own edification, adequate parking does not actually include a covered garage, though. The term adequate parking is just that. So if there's pads there in which they can pull off the street, that would be adequate. Is that correct? Is that a correct assumption?
It wouldn't meet current code, and I'm not sure where the red car is, if that is, I don't believe that pad really is totally off the street. It probably still is in the cul-de-sac, a portion of it, to pull the car all the way forward. I apologize for not having a better picture of that. Let's see if we can go, maybe that, no. Yeah, that shows where the garage is. So I don't have a picture that fully shows that, but my sense is that they're going to have, and just how this garage is proposed to be, the second garage, they're going to have to fill in quite a bit there. It drops off into the Nevada state lands significantly at that corner. And so I believe they're going to have to build up that area to be able to support that garage. So I think that they have a portion of it. Oops, I'm going the wrong way, yeah. They have a portion on the property and portion of the parking is in the, on the public right-of-way.
Am I also correct to assume that where the boat is would be, that's where the single-car garage would be?
Correct.
Probably in the same proximity where, if it was big enough, you could slide that boat in there? I mean, that would
I don't
kinda
know if
just
they're going to
give-
put the boat in there, but I know that they, that's where the single-car garage is going to be located. And right now, it looks like the boat is on the neighboring property line, or if not over it, and they're asking for a 1-foot setback there, so that where that boat is, they're going to have to be at least a foot away from that garage next door.
Yeah, I'm only really using the boat as a visual aid.
Yeah.
I would anticipate
Okay.
a car would be in there, but, so that would indicate about where the proximity of the single car would be, or would be.
Yes.
However,
Okay.
Christina Hill, as you can see from this photograph, there's 2 cars, a car parked in front of that. So it's almost like it could afford 2 parking spots in, if they were one tandem, whatever you call it.
Probably depends on how they can situate that 1-car garage in
But
there.
it does show 2, it shows a car and a boat being parked on there in this photograph.
Yeah, but I
And-
think that car is in the public right-of-way. Yes, I'm pretty sure that, see where you can sort of see where the bush is. I think it's sort of sticking, and that bush is right, part of it's in the public right-of-way and part of it's on the HOA property. And I believe that car is out a little bit from the bush.
Ms. Olander, so the public understands what we're referencing, can we put that up just so they can see? That would be about even with the bushes. there.
Right. Well, probably, it's my thinking that back in 1979, they might have required 1 parking spot per unit. And there are 4 units there, and it looks like there's at least 2 or 3 parking spots where the red car is, and maybe 2 or 1 parking spot where the boat is. So it looks like there's roughly 4 parking spots there.
I do believe that the boat is totally on the HOA property. I'm not sure that I could agree with the red car being totally on the HOA common space, common area. I think it's partially on the public right-of-way. So it's hard to say what they did in '79. It's possible they didn't even have parking requirements at that time in that respect. I mean, I've
would
talked
be
to
hard
several
to
people
believe.
up there that said, parking on the streets, the norm in some of these older neighborhoods. So it's hard to speculate.
Ms. Olander, can you go back to the picture of the overhead that had the boat? Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Mr. Stanley?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a couple of questions, and I'm saying this facetiously or sarcastically. I'm surprised you didn't know what was happening in 1979, given the last presentation you made where you had what color everyone's suit was at the meeting. So good package as always. Quick question, a couple of questions actually. You said this would move things, and I think you said closer to code was the phrase you used. How close? Or what is code and how's it out of code?
So
what would be
currently,
closer?
the code requires, and I'll go back to that section. I think I have it up. Nope, not that right, wrong way. So currently, code requires 2 parking places per dwelling unit. So there's 4 dwelling units there. So currently, they would have to have 8 parking places. So, is that right? Yes. So they'd have to have 8 parking places, and 4 of those would have to be in garages. So they'd have to have a 4-car garage and 4 parking places that could be not in a garage.
So to meet code, that would be physically impossible, roughly.
That would be impossible on this property. So the closest we can come
So you're kind of sneaking up
is
on it.
possibly this scenario that they're proposing.
You mentioned that other homeowners in that, or dwellings in that same area had, many of them had covered parking. Are all of them, or most of them, or all of those similarly
See if I can go
disadvantaged lots? I mean, under the variance principle, are all of them
So-
constrained in that same manner, or?
No, the other ones were built later, I believe, later, and I was thinking I had a picture, but I don't. Anyway, they all have garages. They all have double-car garages. The one
Right.
next door, the one next door might be a single car, but they all have garages.
Did they, do you know, require variances for those?
No,
Or-
those were all built after. My understanding is they were built either after or they were built with garages, one or the other.
Okay. Another question, and perhaps it should have been obvious, but I missed it. What in detail, and in which ways is this request different than the one of August 17th, which was unanimous?
They asked for 2 double-car garages, and now they're asking for 1 double-car garage and 1 single-car garage.
Okay. And what was required, is it required to get closer to code that they both be covered? Or
No,
that
but
they have the space?
the applicant requested the coverage,
Okay.
but this time they're not asking for a side setback on both sides of the property, only the side to the west.
And-
That's where the double-car garage, they're asking for that reduction on that side, but not on the other side.
Understood. Thank you. The other thing that when I was going through the online minutes and history of this the last time, I didn't find a state lands report in the previous one. This one sounds pretty negative about this. Doesn't deny it or doesn't ask you to condition it, but it was, I would say, not positive in tone. How's that?
Right.
And they were talking about snow shed in particular. That's the part of it that I kind of understood, and interference with root structures and so forth by moving closer. How is that? Is that conditioned, or what are you thinking there, or how's that work? Or are these guys just going to have to be upset, or?
So I did talk to the lands folks, and they were noticed on the previous one. They did not provide a letter at that time. I believe they've had some change of staff down there, and the woman who provided the letter this time, she provided a letter this time. They did the last time. So, and they have made it sort of clear that in the basin, they do not want to have any variances on any properties that are adjacent to the Nevada state lands. I know you heard a case, I believe last time, maybe the month before, about the elevator, and they were adjacent to the U.S. Forest Service, and the U.S. Forest Service had no objection to that elevator. Where the Nevada, so they're two different organizations, they have two different philosophies. Nevada State Lands' philosophy is that they don't want any variances for a garage, for an elevator, for any purposes at all. They have their sense is that that is going to be a burden on their property. So we have two different agencies with two different philosophies, and we move forward with that.
Okay. And if I may, Mr. Chair, a question for legal. We have, late breaking news, I guess, a letter from Mr. Hash
Yes.
suggesting that we delete from our minds, if we looked at the past one, which I did, by the way, all the minutes and all the entire package. How are we to address that, please?
Mr. Chairman and Commissioner, in regard to a review of the emails and Exhibit F that is in the packet, there was a CAB meeting for the incline cab that was scheduled for February 4th. Due to weather constraints, that meeting was canceled. The cab members were given, as they always are, the member worksheets prior to. Two of those worksheets were returned to Ms. Olander in regard to those comments. Those worksheets are part of the packet, as are the emails that have been received by other property owners. This board has the right to review any comments that are made. Those, I would be hesitant to say that those two cab members that responded with those worksheets, they are not speaking on behalf of the cab, they are speaking as individuals. This board can consider that. Any issues in regard to the open meeting are to be addressed by the cab, not by this board.
Thank
That would be
you
my advice to legal counsel.
very much.
Yes, Mr. Toulouse.
Ms. Olander? In one of the cab member worksheets, reference is made to the sensitive stream zone, the sensitive environmental zone. And is that zone on the state land? Where exactly is that zone that we're
I know
talking
the
about?
cab members here that presented that information. I am not familiar with that, and I was not made aware of that through the Nevada State Lands people that I spoke to did not indicate that is on their property, so I would refer to him, to Mr. Todoroff. So that did not come up in any of my conversations with Nevada State Lands.
Okay, so I'm not.
And it's not on the.
I'm actually not
it's- And it's not on the HOA property.
Okay. So let me rephrase.
Okay.
Are you aware of a sensitive stream zone or sensitive environmental zone adjacent to this project proposal?
I am not.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Olander, a quick question, a point of clarification. I know we keep addressing the current code, that'll be more in compliance with the current code. But as it stands, they're not in violation of the code, because the condos were constructed in '79 prior to this requirement coming into effect. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And in addition to that, I'm a little bit, I'm unclear on where the snow removal is going to go if it slides off the roof and all that. Would that go onto the neighbor's property or onto other people's property with only a foot clearance from the property line?
You know, it would depend on the construction of the garage. My understanding through our building department is that any kind of runoff, be it snow or water, has to be maintained on your property. You can't runoffs of water and all those kind of items have to be maintained on your property.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Ms. Hill?
Where is the state land property in reference to this property?
So it's, oops, let's go back. Well, so it's the property to the north. It's, I think I had a picture in, oh, I keep going the wrong direction. I apologize. Oh, I don't have a good picture of it, sorry. It is that property where the red vehicle is, that sort of is facing it. And then here, there's a picture of where the Nevada state lands are.
Okay.
It's that corner, it's right on the corner, it'd be to the west of this property, where the proposed two-car garage is. Just on the other side of that property line is the Nevada state lands.
My concern is if there's no garage there, it seems like there would be more ability to park 4 cars for the 4 units. 1 or 2 in the west side and 1 or 2 on the east side. And now when you are putting in a 2-car garage and a 1-car garage, that pretty much limits it to 3 cars parking on site. And there's 4 units there. Have you given that any consideration?
Well, the problem, I believe the pad is not, if you couldn't park 4 cars on that pad, the pad to the, on the west side, 4 cars wouldn't, because the pad is not, it would be in the public right-of-way. So possibly you might, I don't even think you can get 2 cars on there, that the pad is not big enough, and most of it's, so the cars are parking, from my perspective, the cars on that area are parking in the public right-of-way. They're not parking, like that car right there is in the public right-of-way. So when snow removal comes through, now in the wintertime, it's up right now, if you go up there, as you saw these pictures, there's just no way for those, I keep going the wrong way. There's no way that those plow individuals are going to be able to tell if you're, there's piles of snow there, and they're
Well,
just
they
sort of
can't-
tunneled in.
They can't really tell where the
No.
line is either. I
No.
mean, it's a big court where they,
Right.
clear it out and they're not going to hit a car.
Right, no.
But it seems like now, I mean, you could park next to that red car and you
Right.
could park, obviously, there's the boat and a car
Yes.
behind it. So there's parking, it looks like to me, regardless if it sticks out a little bit off the property for 4 cars. And then if you build a 2-car garage and a 1-car garage, there will only be parking for 3 cars, and you have 4 units. So where's the other guy going to park? If they're all full, the units, you're going to be parking in the road regardless.
I don't believe the units are full, the 4 residents are up there all year round, I mean, all the same time. You can have the applicant speak to that more. He would probably have more
Well,
information
I
on
mean,
that.
there's a chance.
Yeah, no,
I
there is.
mean,
And there's a chance, yeah, so
so that person or whoever didn't get,
they'll be parking in the public right-of-way.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Stanley?
Kim?
Following up, thank you, Mr. Chair. Following up a bit on Member Hill's analysis here, or questioning, concerns. It is allowed to have on-street parking, is that correct?
Correct. They can park there, except in the wintertime. And when they're the red days, there are certain days that you're not supposed to be parking in the public right-of-way.
Because of snow clearing?
Because of the plow, yeah.
Okay, and roughly, I'm not familiar with the area particularly, so during the winter, which I'm assuming is when there's snow, on a good year, how many times a week or how many times a month or any sense? I don't,
No, I wouldn't want to speculate on that one. especially with the winters we've had lately. Some are much
So
more
is it kind
significant
of as
than
needed
others.
or something?
I beg your pardon?
As needed or something like that?
Yes.
There's one other question unrelated a bit to this, but I noticed that in the August 17 version, there was a concern by the board, or a question about the board, about sewer lines and so forth, and some of the lines required to build the, I think it would be the Nevada land side building. But I also, didn't the report coming in from, do I have the acronym right, IRGD? Didn't they suggest that all of those would need to be moved anyway, again, this time?
Right, and that is not unusual for the GID to require that move, no, those things be moved. They didn't say it was impossible, they just said those things would have to be done before the building could be constructed.
Okay. And was there any mention of that in the state lands concern list? I didn't notice it, I just didn't know.
I didn't see that in there.
Okay. And then I guess my last question is, physically, is there one of the drawings you have, or part of the application, that would indicate how close, let's say, the roof line, I guess it'd be eaves line, right, would be to the actual state land?
So they're requiring, they're asking for a 1-foot setback. So the building, the face of the building or the side of the building would be at least 1 foot away from that property line.
The side.
It'd have to be at least 1 foot.
And how about the eaves? Is that included?
So that, again, they would have to construct something that would not, have the runoff into the adjacent property, be it the state lands or whoever. That's not permissible, that's not permitted. So you
But-
have to keep, your stuff on your side of the property line.
Yeah, so, but in any case, the eaves wouldn't go past that property line, obviously.
Correct. They would have to devise something that would not make that, to stop that from happening, be it rain or snow. They would have to devise show on their building permit that there would not be significant issue to the adjacent property owner.
Is that available and kind of traditional and typical in that area?
Right,
To have
that
such a
is,
thing?
yeah, that's a code requirement. Same thing that the garage, the other garage, the one-car garage, if it's more than, and I think that's in the fire comment, that they have to put in a fire retardant wall if it's only a foot away from another structure. So those are the kind of things that building will look at if it was to move forward, the building department, when it goes through the building permit process, that's when those items would be reviewed.
I noticed there was a hold harmless for the snow removal.
Correct.
Is that in place now?
No.
Thank you.
Mr. Lawrence.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Olander, could you go to the slide of the two-car garage real quick?
The schematic, the
Yeah,
elevation?
the snowy one there.
There.
No, the
Oh,
one of
snowy
those
one?
snow,
Oh, the
yeah.
snowy one. I apologize for these pictures. It was really difficult up there. I had snowbanks I had to sort of maneuver between.
Well, I think they're very telling, actually. I think they're good. So the two-car garage being to the right of the walkway to the units. Now, my assumption is that roof would be shedding snow towards the walkway, is that correct? Or
Well, I think what they're going to have to do, and this is just an assumption on my part, if we go back to that picture, they're going to have to provide some kind of relief on both sides and develop some kind of structure that it doesn't shed, be it on the walkway or on the Nevada state lands. They're going to have to develop some kind of structure that is not because they're in a very challenging situation.
right, and so my question is, have they presented anything to the county to do that, or is that in our approved with conditions? I wasn't sure about that.
So they're only asking for a variance at this point. It's possible they get the variance and then they go in and start moving, trying to develop the property for the garages. And they might have some problems that they cannot create the garages they want there. It's possible that might not, it might be too expensive for them, variety of different issues could come up. So at this point, all they're asking for is the variance. The building permit process is separate and will identify, fire issues, issues with the grading, issues with the building, the construction of the building and so forth.
Okay, that's beyond the reach of this board, I understand.
Right,
Thank you.
all you're being asked to do is a variance appropriate at this location, be it for a garage or be it for whatever. I mean, they could say, we don't want to do a garage, we're going to do, I don't know, whatever else they want to do at those locations. But they're proposing to put garages there, but there's no requirement that they move forward with their garages.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you, Ms. Olander. Is the applicant present? And would they like to come up to the podium and address this issue? If you please state your name for us and your address.
My name is John Hash. I represent the Greenview Homeowners Association. Can I change this myself? This is our second attempt to receive a lot line variance for garages. We've had lots of opposition from this little gentleman here. In August of 2017, the Washoe County Planning Department approved our request with conditions. However, you overruled the professional planners, stating we would be receiving a special privilege. With all due respect, you cannot receive a special privilege if everyone else also has what you're asking for. It's not special then. The circle that you see there is the end of our lot. The red car is half off the parking pad. Any other car that sits there is half off the parking pad. That boat is 17 feet long. You cannot park 2 vehicles in 20 feet. The minimum space for a garage is normally 20 feet in length. These lots, all of these lots in this basin are subject to Tahoe Regional Planning Authority approval after the lot line adjustment approval. You've asked several questions about how the roof would alleviate water or snow. Today, there is approximately 200 tons using 37 pounds per square foot of snow setting on the Nevada Conservancy lot. It is used as a snow lot basin the entire winter. The snow does not finish melting until sometime in late spring, probably late May, sometimes early June. This year, because we've got a 25-foot berm totally surrounding that lot. I'll walk you through it if I can find it with the other way. Okay, if you look at the left picture, the two dark items to the left are our trash containers. So the garage would sit at a minimum of 5 feet from our neighbor's lot. And we went to the 3-car garage concept because he was very, very upset. He used to live in our building. He lived in our building for 13 years. He never had a garage. He has never been up there in the winter, so he doesn't know the contingencies that exist when you do this. To give you an example, this morning there was another foot of snow on my car. We've had 32 feet so far this year. It takes 25, 30 minutes to get it off to even come down the hill to come to this meeting. This left lot would hold the single car garage. That's all it would hold, 1-car garage. We realize that everyone is not going to have a parking space. We're still going to have 1 car parked off our property and on-street parking. The two-car garage that's to the right, and everything to the right is the Nevada Conservancy land. Stream environmental zone, it is not. It holds a muck of material for 6 to 7 months out of the year, and they can't do anything about it. There's no place else our street guys can put the snow. This comes off part of the main highway, 431, down through Country Club, over toward the golf course. They can't even get to the golf course even if there were a place to put it there. And everything else is occupied with buildings. So that snow load sits there that entire time, and whatever road debris, whatever road spill, whatever else goes into that stream zone. It does not actually drain to the stream. It drains onto our lot. And our lot has had root rot, trees falling, everything else. We understand that. We're not upset with the Nevada Conservancy because that's all they can do. The Tahoe Regional Planning Authority provides for drip trenches and dry wells for all roof, snow, water, whatever moves from a roof has to be contained in either a drip trench, a dry well, or a combination of the two. And those go hand in hand with what are called the BMPs of the Tahoe regional area. And the BMPs are the best management practices, and you are required as a homeowner to put those in to every building and residential area that you have. I'm not familiar with commercial, only with residential. So none of the snow from our roof would be dropping onto the Nevada state lands. It would be dropping into a drip trench. The drip trench would have to be done by an engineer who would size it for the angle and size of the roof. It would then either go into a dry well, or it would environmentally move down across our lot. We have tried very hard to accommodate our neighbors. Our neighbor to the left, who you can see his garage sits right there in front of his house. It's actually the back of his house. His view is to the lake, is further on. He has complained. We understand his complaint. But the point is that by putting a one-car garage in there, we are staying 5 feet from his property line, from our property line. His garage, as you can see, drains down and probably drains a little bit onto our lot, but that's the nature of the snow up in Incline. To Mr. Large's comment about the open meetings or closed meetings, all I can do is read the documents as they are submitted. If a document states that a meeting was held on the 4th of February and that our variance was discussed at that time without us being present, that's what Mr. Todorov's document states. I did not make it up. It's what his document states. Anyway, if you have any questions for me, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Hatch? Ms. Hill?
How many of the 4 condominium owners are full-time residents in Incline Village?
Just me. I live there full-time. I leave when the tourists come. When they come up, I leave. They usually come up right after Memorial Day. And
where do you go?
I go sometimes to Europe, sometimes to San Francisco, sometimes to visit my kids in Austin or Seattle.
Okay, so you do have another residence?
Yes, I do.
Where is that?
San Francisco.
Okay. And everybody.
Why is that important?
Well, I just trying to figure out who's part-time. So in the summer months, you're not there.
We leave, like I said, usually when all of the traffic and the tourists head up there. I've lived at the lake since 1996, and I have a pretty good idea of when we're going to have trouble. We can't get on our beach. We
I
can't.
live in Incline too.
Have you been to the beach in
Yes.
the summer?
I go to the beach all the time, and I've lived in Tahoe since 1980, so.
Okay. It's tough
I don't agree.
in the summer.
That's all. That's my question.
Thank you. Are there other questions for Mr. Hatch? Mr. Hatch, I do have one. I need for you to clarify something for me. The condos that you have there, they're 4 separate condos,
4 separate ones.
but you're asking for basically 3 garages.
That's to alleviate some of the concerns of our neighbor so that we will not infringe or go past the 5-foot setback on the side.
Okay, but as you spoke earlier, you addressed the issue of special favor, and it's not a special favor if everyone else has it. But not all 4 owners are going to have it.
That's absolutely correct.
So
But
how do you
in-
decide, or how is it going to be decided who gets a garage and who doesn't get a garage?
These garages are built on the common area, so it belongs to the common area, not to the individuals. So it's going to be a first-come, first-served basis. Right now, in the 10 years I've lived there, in this particular property, we've never had all 4 people. We've never even had 3. So it's a hedge, is what it is. We're trying to, our street guys right now can't even get close to our cars because they can't even sometimes tell what a car is. So the berms that are left in front of the cars coming out, and it's not just us, the people who park in the street, other places have the same problems. So it's an issue. Garages help. Garages also help with runoff from streets of oils and everything else. Most Tahoe regional plans include garages to prevent runoff from blacktop or hard stand.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Stanley?
Thank you. Mr. Hash, we've spoken a lot, heard a lot about the boat as a reference. Who owns the boat?
No one now. It was actually a friend's boat that the gentleman in number 1 asked if he could put it up there, and we said, sure. Nobody was, they said, sure. I wasn't there. So, but none of our people own boats.
Okay. So the boat theoretically won't be there. If
Not
a
next
garage
year.
goes up, it won't be a garage for a boat.
Of course. If we get the garage in, there's no room for a boat.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Sash, thank you very much. Madam Secretary, is there anyone else that wishes, from the audience, that wishes to speak on this public comment?
We have Pete Todorov.
Good afternoon, Board. I'm Pete Todorov, Chairman of the Citizens Advisory Board. One thing I'd like to, that you people have I'd like to expound on what you said. To me, that there are 4 units and there's only 3 vehicles that are going to be accommodated, I find personal, a special person. And they knew this when they purchased these units in 1979. Also, I believe you have a copy of the house that's behind this association, and the person indicated to me, if they build a garage right where that mound of snow is by this garage, and the roof is like this, where is the snow going to go besides the roof on the garage? That's going to be I don't care if it's 5 feet away, there's probably 4 feet or more on the top of the roof right now, and then you have another garage there, it's going to cause a problem on the structure, I would believe. I could be wrong. I've been a resident for 38 years in Incline, and I noticed that the owner was very adamant about what he said. He said if they build a garage, it's going to block his view, number one. It's going to cause a problem for him getting to his house, which is behind there, if they have a garage there as well. So I don't see how that is going to benefit the entire association, the entire fourplex. I could be wrong, but I don't see how that. Is it for public good that it'll impact one neighbor with a single-car garage blocking the view and will shed snow on that garage? It's right there. There's a fire hydrant there which can be moved. It's not a problem there. But, and then the Nevada State land, in that area of Nevada State land where they want to build a 2-car garage, that is a watershed, period. And Nevada State Lands does not want to do any variances, anything close to their property. And if that 2-car garage is going to have this type of roof line, where's the snow going to go besides on their property? So, pardon me?
All right, go ahead. You're still up.
And that's my concern. And I also brought Wayne Ford, who's a designer for garages, for houses, for everything else, who knows a lot more than I do because I've consulted with him a lot, and I'd like him to also speak on my behalf.
Thank you. Are there any questions for this gentleman?
Chairman, we have not designed
Uh,
the garages as of yet.
Mr. Hash,
That
it's,
is in the building
Mr.
process.
Hash.
These are renderings.
Mr. Hash, this is not your time. We afforded you the opportunity to speak, and now you need to allow these individuals the opportunity to speak. Before we go any further, are there any questions for Mr. Todorov? Yes. Sir, could you please come back to the podium? Mr. Toulouse?
Mr. Todorov, I'm looking at your cab member worksheet, and did you or did you not have a meeting on February 4th?
We did not.
Your cab worksheet says that your comments were discussed during a February 4th meeting. Is that just an error?
No, it was not discussed. We had a notice, since I was chairman, we had a notice that the meeting was canceled. And there's Alice McQueen who sends out these notices and said it was canceled, but we have to turn in a review what we recommended because the meeting was canceled. Everybody should have done it, but not everybody got a notice.
I understand that, but on the worksheet itself, you indicate that there was a meeting and that your
There
comments
was
were...
supposed to be. I
Excuse me.
handed in beforehand.
So that was so it's just an error, a
It's
clerical
basically an
error.
error because I handed in before the meeting was so
Okay.
we could discuss it at the meeting.
All right, great, thank you for clearing that up.
Thank you. Mr. Stanley? Just one more second.
And
Please come back up.
Mr. Todorov, thank you very much for coming down, for one thing.
It's my pleasure.
And secondly, on the stream zone, do you have any awareness of that? I heard you mention it, and I think you mentioned it in your note, and everybody else is kind of...
Avoided that question.
Well, I wouldn't, try to pick a different word. Might have not been aware of where the stream zone was or what it is.
That is part of Nevada State lands. It was. It is.
And can you, is there any implication there, since we're not aware of, what's the implication of something being a stream zone? Or is that a
He's the
perfect handoff?
expert in
Right,
that
thank you.
department.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Mr. Todorov, one more question for me. In that area, that residential area, are there other residents that don't have garages?
No, they were built later.
They were built later?
Yeah. This
Okay.
is built in 1979, and in 1979, like you said, some of the people have said before, they didn't have the stringent laws that they do now. And I feel if they build 3 garages, that's going to reduce the amount of parking they're going to have on their period.
Okay.
Because where are they going to park? Behind the garages? You know, if people come up. And who's to say, okay, you have 1 full-time resident? Well, I think it should be fair and equitable for all. When I was property manager, which I was, I'm old now, but when I was property manager, you had to do everything fair and equitable for everybody in their association. Everybody needs to benefit. You can't leave one person out because they only come up part of the time of year. It has to be fair and equitable for everybody.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
I want to thank you for allowing me to just bring a
Please
few other...
state your name.
Oh,
for
I'm
us
sorry,
and your
Wayne
address.
Ford. I'm a residential designer. I've been at Tahoe for 25 years. I sympathize with the HOA and what they're trying to do. There's one little thing missing that may need to be tried first, and I've done it on many projects. In TRPA code, under life and safety, TRPA has found that 400 square feet of parking is available under life and safety if a demonstration can be made that the homeowner or association is not meeting that minimal standard for parking. So whatever difference that you can show is still lacking in terms of that coverage for that 2 spaces. You can make an application under life and safety, and you can go buy that coverage from the Nevada State Lands, ironically the same party that owns the property next door. And you can transfer that in. So because they are limited on coverage is not the end-all in terms of not being able to get enough parking space. Now, how is that coverage, how can it be used? Well, it can be a combination of asphalt, additional asphalt area. It also can be a combination of more parking deck allowed to be built. And I see the HOA fighting up against the wall in terms of thinking that they're limited, but TRPA's gone on record, they care about off-street parking. They care about the safety of the people there and being able to get their vehicles off the road, not covered with snow. I just made that finding for an elevator for 75 square feet to be transferred in because we didn't have enough coverage. We were out of it, and there was no other place to bring it in on the site. So that's available. It's not cheap, it's $40 a square foot, but it's there. So this whole plan where they feel like they're in a box, there may be another way out of it. If they made application, made the findings with TRPA, and the planners are, Julie Roll is more than happy as one of their planners over there to try to make that finding so that this whole picture could change in terms of their options. So I'm just throwing that out to the board here. Now, as far as the stream zone, that parcel was sold to Nevada State Lands. Sherry and I talked because she transferred that coverage in for me, and it's in process right now for the elevator. That whole area down there is repairing vegetation, and they had to do a lot of restoration. It all sheds into the creek that runs through the golf course. So the whole parcel is deemed high water table in many areas. So if you had any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
One note, there's
Thank you,
no
sir.
coverage on this land yet, there's no height score, pre-height.
Thank you, Mr. Hash. I would appreciate it that if we call you to the podium now, you can go ahead and answer any questions that we may have. Other than that, shout outs from the audience really do not help. Thank you, sir.
I could address that concern he might have, but I don't want to get out of order.
Well, let's see if there's
Thank
any
you.
questions by the board for you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Are there any questions?
Yeah, I'd like to see him, if he wishes to address a concern, to do so.
Thank you, Mr. Lawrence. Sir, would you address that issue then?
Under Bailey, you have a limited coverage and it's grandfathered to the parcel. That particular parcel probably only has an allowable coverage based on its land capability. But you're allowed to transfer in land capability restored 1A coverage That's the only available through Nevada State Lands right now. That applies to any parcel because the worst-case parcel is 1A. So there is coverage available for that parcel. It doesn't have to be the same class as long as the coverage has been restored from a more sensitive area, which that's all they have in their bank right now, is 1A restored coverage. Thank
So,
you.
Mr. Ford, just to simplify this whole thing.
Yeah.
They could make an application to state lands through TRPA to be able to purchase land to expand the parking. Is that correct?
And then if they
That's all
could
we're
not
saying,
get
right?
it, then they'd have a valid case to say, this is all we've got.
I understand. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Madam Secretary, is there anyone else wishing to speak on this issue?
We have no further public comment.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and close public comment and bring it back to the board for discussion. Anybody wish to discuss this?
I'd just like to
Ms. Hill?
say, as a TRPA planner back in the 80s and a planning consultant in Tahoe for the last 40 years approximately, 39 to be exact, this is a very sensitive, environmentally sensitive area, period. I mean, the subject residence is steep, and it's probably considered 1A or 2. Do you know what, I don't know what the land capability is, but it's steep. And the state lands purchases properties that are environmentally sensitive to preserve them from being developed. So just the fact that state lands owns it is a flag that that's a sensitive piece of land. Otherwise, they wouldn't own it. So any kind of additional coverage or runoff is, creates, like the state lands letter outlines, additional erosion and saturation in the sensitive areas.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I agree with Ms. Hill's comments. And to me, nothing has changed since August, other than the letter from State Lands, which really casts a lot of issues on proceeding further with it. So to me, nothing's really changed, other than having additional reinforcement from State Lands that it's not appropriate for this property.
Thank you. Mr. Stanley?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I agree with what the other two members have said so far, and in researching the previous discussion and the minutes and so forth, many of the questions that weren't answered that we were concerned about in the August meeting were in fact answered here, and to the detriment, I think, of the project rather than enhancing it, including, as mentioned, the pretty pointed concerns of the State Lands Group. And so it's difficult to find, to make the findings, more difficult perhaps than it was when it was defeated 5-0 the last time.
Thank you. Ms. Hill?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One more thing is that there's numerous properties, probably, I don't know what percentage of properties in Incline of residential properties that do not have garages. It's kind of a fact of life up there. And in the homeowners association I live in, Tyrolean Village, there's most of the units do not have garages, and we've had to deal with, this huge amounts of snow, and it's just part of life up there. That's what you have to do in the winter, is a lot of shoveling. It's just straw, and it's not something that's a given in Incline,
Thank you.
that you get a garage.
Mr. Stanley?
Yeah, one additional point. In many cases, or in some cases on variances, the kind of motivator is to bring a site into code compliance. And that's always an interesting analysis to go through. In this particular case, it's a little different, as mentioned, to try to bring it closer to code, not to code. We don't solve a problem, we kind of solve a problem. And so that was another concern that I have, that I'm not sure, I don't know if closer is a sufficient motivation to push this thing very far either.
Thank you. I guess I will chime in here too. And earlier during the discussions, Ms. Hill brought it to the board's attention of a picture that showed a car parked in front of the boat, which obviously there's a little bit of depth there, plus you have the two-car parking pad on the other side. And I guess the concern I had is that if you now put garages in there, you're actually forcing someone to park on the street or further out. It's probably even creating more of a potential traffic hazard just by seeing the pictures that we've been presented with. I too agree with my colleagues up here that I don't think anything's really changed since the last time we met and we addressed this issue. So if there's no further discussion, I will accept a motion.
I'll take a stab at it.
Thank you, Mr. Toulouse.
I move that after giving reasoned consideration to the information contained in the staff report and information received during the public hearing, Washoe County Board of Adjustment deny variance case number WPVAR 19-001 for Greenview Homeowners Association being unable to make all 5 required findings in accordance with Washoe County Development Code Section 110.804.25. The 2 findings I'm unable to make are no detriment. I find that it would be detrimental to adjacent properties, and no special privileges. I find that a special privilege would be granted to a small group.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I second.
Ms. Hill seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Next on the agenda is chair and board items. Number A, future agenda items. Is there any?
You should do appeal procedure.
Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Pelham, would you go ahead and give the appeal procedure one more time?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Most decisions rendered by the Board of Adjustment are appealable to the Board of County Commissioners. If you disagree with the decision of the Board of Adjustment and you want to appeal its action, you may do so in writing within 10 calendar days from the date that the decision being appealed is signed by the Secretary to the Board of Adjustment and mailed to the original applicant in the proceeding being appealed, in accordance with Washoe County Code. Please call planning staff immediately at 328-6100 for information on the appeal procedure and application fee.
Thank you. Now we will move on to number 9, chair and board items. Are there any future agenda items that the board would like to be added? Seeing
Well,
that, Ms. Hill?
I'm just wondering, a question for Roger. When you read the appeal procedure, the number on our paragraph doesn't say 328-6100. It says 328-3600. What's,
One of those is I'm sorry, for the record, Roger Pelham with Planning and Building. One of those is the front desk for the Community Services Department. The other
Yeah.
is the direct line to the front desk for planning. Both will get you to the right place.
okay. Thanks.
Thank you.
It's just always funny to see, you read it different than what it says on our agenda.
Any future agenda items? Thank you. Are there any requests for information from staff by board members? Seeing none, thank you. We will move on. Number 10, Director and Legal Counsel's items. Number A, report on previous Board of Adjustment items. Mr. Pelham, do you have anything for us?
I have nothing to report, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Large, do you have any legal information or updates the board needs to know about?
I do not.
Thank you kindly.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
before we go too much further, we should address the July 4th meeting. Our meeting is actually scheduled for July 4th, so we may want to reconsider that date. My inclination would be to just cancel the July meeting at this point unless we have something that is of a time-sensitive nature.
Thank you. Mr. Pelham, would you like to speak on that at all?
Mr. Chairman, yes, thank you, Mr. Sluse, for bringing that up. I had forgotten that. That had been brought to my attention prior to this meeting. Yeah, we really should pick a date for that meeting. Something heard in July at this hearing would be submitted most likely on May 15th, so we don't know whether we will have a pressing item or not. But it's, we have that, 8 or 9 week cycle there. The 4th falls, of course, on Thursday. And I would look over at Donna. Do we have a suggestion?
July 11th would be unavailable because we have parcel map meeting that day. So any other time,
Perhaps the day before, Wednesday the 3rd?
no. I think a lot of people go on vacation that week.
Yes, there's people usually traveling to and from for the 4th.
If we push back a little bit, we have to be a little bit careful that we don't get outside of the review period for like special use permits or variances.
Could we do
And
the,
so perhaps Monday the 8th?
or July 10th, which would be the Wednesday,
I'll be fishing.
a week later? Oh,
Will we be making these just as tentative dates, depending on what is out there and what needs to be addressed?
Yeah, this would be tentative. We would set the meeting for this date, and then we would essentially cancel if there are no items to be heard.
Is the 2 dates that have been presented, the 8th or the 10th, do any of the remainder board members have issues with either of those dates?
I'm not too keen on Mondays. Those are
Okay.
usually kind of strong business days, trying to catch up from everything everybody didn't do.
Okay,
Let's
So
shoot
when-
for the 10th then.
I think we will go for the 10th. Mr. Pelham, if we can go ahead and
Pencil us in.
pencil that in for us.
Thank you very much. And I will express my jealousy of member Toulouse, who will be fishing that whole time, I gather.
Okay, thank you. Next item, general public comment and discussion. Madam Secretary, is there anyone who wishes to speak at this time?
we have no public comment.
Thank you very much. With that, we are adjourned.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.